Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the bill.
To the bill.
Thank you. I'll start by saying, colleagues, I applaud the respect we're showing for one another in this debate. It needs to happen that way, in that fashion. I think there's folks obviously on both sides of the issue, and there's a lot of folks that are watching this very closely. Some will be impacted greater than others, and just appreciate, again, that we can have a disagreement in this setting and have this kind of respect for one another. There's been lots of discussion on the issue of PERS. This is nothing new. In fact, there's been a long history of discussing PERS out of these chambers. I've watched from afar. I've had a front row seat. So today's really no different for me. There's blanket statements made about PERS that, quite honestly, leave out a lot of the details. It gets a little frustrating. They portray the average PERS retirement recipient as somewhat egregious, somebody that receives far more than they ever deserve, far more than they were ever paid. There's a flaw in the system that pays people this way. In some cases, I could agree with that, but not as a blanket statement, certainly not the case. The large payouts that you've read about in the paper that always make the front page, do a great job putting that on the front page, simply are not the norm. PERS members aren't just the head football coach. They're not just the superintendent. In some cases, PERS your local law enforcement. Not just your police officers, but actually the chief of police too. You don't see them down there arguing or lobbying on behalf of PERS. We'll leave that to the line cop. They're your local firefighters. Again, from the chief at the top to the firefighter at the bottom. From the guy that's got 30 years to the guy that's got 30 days. Again, we'll leave that job to the 30-day guy to argue why it's going to impact him, and our chiefs will be okay. Our teachers, our principals, our superintendent, custodians, administrative assistant, nurses, counselors, everyone in public school entity committed to shaping the minds and lives of our children. Those are our PERS recipients, not millionaires. Obviously, it's not an all-inclusive list, but in a general sense, it's my opinion that PERS members, by and large, pretty hard-working middle-class folks. They have families. They're struggling like all of us. Some even have businesses. Some of them are veterans, reintegrated into a civilian world. On the average, I'm told that a PERS recipient receives $32,000 per year. We don't get to read that on the front page. That won't be the headline because it won't sell the paper. $32,000 a year is the average PERS member. Just to put it in perspective, I'll go a step further. A high school principal, a good friend of mine from Gresham, Rich Correa is his name, Google it, look it up. He told me I could use his name. As the principal of the school, with that kind of responsibility, charged with not only the teachers as an administrator, but all of those students, his salary was $80,000, slightly above. He's now retired. His PERS he receives, mid-60s. Mid-60s. Nobody getting rich, nobody rolling in millions of dollars, nobody spiking the salary. That's the reality. When I hear the argument, it doesn't go far enough. I can't help but almost laugh, and I apologize. It's not meant to be condescending. But it's a really interesting argument to me. This doesn't go far enough. Sometimes we forget that PERS members have already been impacted in 2003. There was significant legislation brought forward, some overturned by court rulings. You might have read about it. I certainly did. Huge impacts. In 2007, you may recall, if you were reading, I think we all were, PERS was fully funded in 2007. Fully funded. But we heard earlier that, what did we say? The system was built incorrectly despite, the reality is, in 2007, some things happened. I don't believe it was 2 custodians retiring or a group of police officers flying out the door. I think that there was a lot going on in the nation, and we're all recovering. And from my seat, I try to respect that greatly so that I don't put the burden of this on a PERS recipient and I don't put it on the business, so that I don't demonize an individual that has made their wealth, and I also don't demonize, and I refuse to demonize the public employee who's out there just doing their job. I should probably point out, since you have a floor letter that states that we're public employees, absolutely I am. I'm a Tier 1 PERS member, 26-year veteran of Gresham, City of Gresham. 11 years as a firefighter, and now I've got about 16 or 15 in counting, or 15 as a firefighter, 11 as a cop, and counting. May 4th, 1987 was my hire date. Initial salary, $15, $17 a month. I took it because longevity pays off. I took the job because it was a dream job. 22 years old, wasn't thinking about retirement, but I certainly am now. Why do I think about it now?
Representative, excuse me a moment. Representative Gelser yields her time. Please continue.
Thank you, Representative. So why am I concerned? I'm 48 years old. I'm eligible at 50 to walk out the door and collect. I'm eligible to walk away today. If I walk away, getting hired back to make a salary that feeds my family is extremely difficult. I'm the old guy now. Anybody ever been there? I haven't asked, and I won't poll it, even though we like to poll in this building. I won't ask how many people want 60-year-old firefighters and cops showing up at their door, but I'll bet they'd rather have the younger generation. In fact, I can tell you I would. It's a tough job, not one you want to re-enter the workforce at 60. The collapse of the market occurred, shouldn't be blamed. It's not the only thing that happened. I get it. I beat back, and for those of you that know me, you know I do, I push back on a lot of bills allowing business to recover, thinking that we will recover as a state, we will recover as a nation. And when I see things that I think are unfriendly to that effort, I push back. I'm proud to do that. But let me tell you, a system that was fully funded in 2007 has to have some recovery in it too. How can you argue that everything else will recover but the system won't? I understand, trust me, having worked 26 years in public safety, I don't like the idea that I could serve 8 terms in this body, be appointed to a 4-year job, and make a killing. I understand, but that's not this bill. So I'll remain germane. Thank you, Madam Speaker. We've heard about the concern expressed for the angst that this causes public employees. Let me share just a little bit about that. When we talk about this doesn't go far enough, when we talk about what we would like to do, or talk about what was tried, ruled on, thrown back as unconstitutional, but we like to try it again anyway, and ask Mom a different question, or the same question differently, let me just tell you what a bad idea that is. Now, I'm not supported by, the city coming down or the counties coming down or the state coming down to tell you what it's going to cost to retrain all the folks when the floodgate drops and people run out the door in their defined benefit, but that's exactly what's going to occur. You keep in mind, if you would, respectfully I request, that we have a group of Tier 1 folks out there in the workforce right now that are eligible to walk out the door. They haven't pulled the plug yet, and to be honest, the legislation we're passing today, that's not going to be enough to make them go because, the COLA, it impacts them once they are retired, not while they're working today. But if they do, and they decide to go, and the floodgates drop, then everything we're talking about, pension spiking, all of that stuff, let me just share with you, in my world, it's mandatory minimum staffing. It's firefighters being forced to work a 48-hour shift. It's cops in the car for another 10 hours, 12 hours, because we have to have them on the street. And then at the end of the year, what we'd like to do is penalize them for that? That doesn't make sense. We can't afford to train a whole new workforce if we lose people in the floodgates dropping. Very concerned about that. We heard this morning, bills and proponents being introduced during courtesies this morning. Had a computation of final salary told that we could save $129 million, potentially. $129 million would be potential savings on that. But that's not this bill. This bill doesn't go there, but instead we're hearing about we can't go there. This doesn't go far enough. I'm not willing to pull on this rope. You know what it reminds me of? With all due respect, and since we use the analogy of kick the can, which is a game that, I used to play as a kid, I'll use this analogy for you. I'm feeling right now like I am driving down I-5, and I am looking at a guy walking in the distance, and he's got a guitar strapped to his back and a sign that says Hollywood. And here I am driving through Salem, and I decide I'm going to be nice and I offer the guy a ride, and I say, look, I'm going as far as Sacramento. Hop in. And the guy looks at me and says, nope, doesn't go far enough. I want to go to Hollywood. If that's your story, my recommendation to that gentleman, break out the guitar and keep strumming and singing your song, because this trip's leaving without you.